Hi everyone, welcome back to Her Happy Mind. My name is Victoria, and I am using my master's in positive psychology to teach you that happiness is not luck, it's a skill. And on today's episode, I am talking with Psychology with Charlotte, an honors student in psychology, and she has built an incredible following on Instagram. And she has a deep interest in mental health, well-being, and happiness. And I thought I could pick her brain just a little bit more. In this conversation, we're going to deep dive into her interest in psychology, how she founded her path into her field, and how studying the mind has shaped her perspective on well-being as well. We'll explore tools, tactical tools, practical tools at the end, so please listen to the whole episode to really get as much information as you can to build your own well-being, your own mental health, and happiness. So let's welcome Charlotte to Her Happy Mind Yaps. Hi everyone, welcome back to Her Happy Mind Yaps. I'm super excited to have Charlotte on our channel today to talk a little bit more about her interest as well with mental health and well-being and happiness. And so her page obviously stood out to me and I was like, I have to have Charlotte on our YouTube channel. So Charlotte, thank you again for taking your time and having a conversation with me today.
Thank you so much, Victoria. I'm so excited to chat. So keen.
Yes. So the first question I wanted to ask you, Charlotte, was obviously, like I said, your page stood out with me with like the tips and the tricks and even the little like misconceptions too. You're always like 5 things to help with your self-confidence or 7 things you
Mm,
didn't know about in your relationship. And I was like, I love this because it gives you steps and it doesn't make anything too hard or complicated. So I'm curious in understanding what first drew you to the psychology field and the total understanding of the human mind.
that is such a good question. And I feel like my answer to this one, because I get asked this a fair bit, is quite funny. I was a very lucky person to feel like I knew what I wanted to do for a very long time since I was a kid. And then when I started studying it, that only like affirmed that rather than like,
Mhm.
I guess, violated those expectations of what it would be like to study psychology. But I must have been like 10, I don't know, when I was watching, do you know Freaky or Friday?
I love that movie. Yes, with Lindsay
Yeah,
Lohan. Yes.
yes, exactly. So, such a weird way for me to come about this, but I hadn't really like learned about the concept of a psychologist yet or like a therapist. And the mum in Freaky Friday is a psychologist, and I was just like getting distracted from the plot of the movie and looking at like what her work life was, which was very much not at all reflective of reality. Like it's a movie, so it's not exactly correct. But I just saw like she was getting to sit down with someone and talk them through a bit of an emotional crisis, and like yeah, like had her room, and I was like, wow, like what is this job? And so I found out that people could be psychologists who support people with mental health, and I was like, wow, this seems like everything I'm passionate about. And so I always sort of had it set in me, okay, I think I want to be a psychologist. And then straight out of high school, I jumped straight into uni. Yeah, and just fell in love with it even more. I think, like back in the day, what I thought it was drew me to it, which was kind of a sense of flexibility with work, getting to talk with people, connect with people, help people. But that there's definitely so much more complexity to it. And I think it works really nicely with just how my brain works in that psychology is so evidence-based, it's so research-driven, and I fell in love with all those aspects all the more. And it's just really cool that psychology gives people the privilege to look at the evidence and go, okay, how can we help people with this, and support people to live better lives via evidence-based means. And so, yeah, once I learned all that as well, I was set in stone. So, yeah, I don't know if that really answers your question, but there's a few different things there. I just always find it funny that the catalyst was Freaky Friday or Freaky Friday, whatever it's called.
No, I actually love that because there's a scene of like, is it like, and how do you feel about that, right? And I'm
Yeah,
like, that is always ingrained in my mind. I know exactly the scene, what she's wearing,
yeah,
the long couch. So no,
yeah,
I
the
love that. And has studying psychology personally shaped you in a way of like understanding your happiness or well-being or your mind as well, especially now graduating with the honors in psychology? Has it, yeah, shaped you personally, not just others around you, but you for yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I think anyone who says no to that, is lying. I wasn't one of those people who was like, oh, I really want to understand myself. I don't find myself that interesting, going into psychology. Whereas I have some friends who were like, yeah, I just want to work on myself a bit, so I'm going to study psychology. But learning about psychology and something I don't know that was well captured by a clinician I know. She said, um, you can't turn off like studying or being a psychologist
Mm.
because what you're learning is so integral to, as you said, like well-being and happiness, are really big topics, and you learn all this stuff. And so by not implementing it in your own life, like what you're learning, those 2 cents or the evidence-based best ways to, work on those areas of your life, uh, you can't then, I guess, in my opinion, expect like a future client to listen to you if you won't even listen to yourself, if that kind of makes sense.
Mm.
So I'm kind of a stubborn person, but during my studies, I sort of realized, oh, okay, I need to get rid of this bad habit because I have to be fair to a hypothetical client one day who, if I'm asking them to get rid of this habit, I need to get rid of this habit. I can't be a hypocrite. So I think there was a bit of that, throughout learning, but I don't know. I just think there's so much untouched about, yeah, just you learn like so many micro things that it's just all so much to like cram into even just the 4 year degree. But it really does influence you. And I think I'm actually very different to who I was, say 4 years ago, even. And I think it's really beautiful, like the ways in which you kind of almost vicariously learn about emotion regulation and things like that. It ultimately makes for a better life, by equipping yourself slowly with those tools as you're learning them from people who are a lot smarter than you. So yeah, I think definitely I've changed, but I can't put a finger on all the different ways, but those are a few.
No, and I think like you touched on like emotional regulations, and there's certain things, at least when I was learning in mine was like, yeah, the mindfulness aspect or the resilience or the
Yeah.
grit. And you're, yes, we know it in a way, but when you read the research or like, evidence-based research, it gives you, at least gave me more confidence that what I was doing would work or would eventually work or something that I can then tell to others or speak into others. And it's not just, oh, this is what she said or something that I read, but okay, no, it's
Yeah.
grounded. This was a study, this was the research. So I loved how you touched upon that as well. And around my page, Instagram, on my new YouTube channel, I talk a lot about happiness and around positive psychology. And for you as a psychologist, what does happiness mean to you? I don't want the surface level definition, but what does happiness truly mean to you when someone says, Charlotte, what makes you happy and what is happiness to you?
Yeah, that's, a great question. I'll definitely skip past the surface level. I will say I'm not a psychologist yet, so my answers to these are all just based on like a student level, I guess, learning. So take everything with a grain of salt if you happen to be listening to this. Um, I think that happiness is best described for me in like what I used to think it was versus what I think now after a bit of studying. So I used to think happiness was a momentary state, that's sort of the ultimate goal to achieve, which is, yeah, a sense of euphoria or joy, in that moment. And yeah, I used to think that the attainable goal is just to try and maintain that, I guess, temporary state for the longest amount of time possible. But and there's so many different, I guess, ways you can look at happiness and definitions that are all technically correct. But to me, these days, happiness is not just that temporary state. Happiness is actually, I guess, it ties in with well-being as well. The ability to cope with stresses that are going to come up in anyone's life. We can't avoid them. And not like that perfect temporary state, of euphoria or joy, but it's actually more of a, I guess, internalized state of mind that lasts a lot longer, even despite, hurt and heartbreak and hardship. Yeah, so I think that's how I look at happiness now. And then, like, there's different spheres of it when it comes to your physical health and your mental health and things like that. And then also the mindset, the state of the mind is really important as well, right? Because I can say, oh, I'm happy right now because I just got some great news. But I can also say, oh, I've had a really happy year because like a lot of bad stuff happened, but a lot of good stuff happened. And I was able to, I guess, reflect and cultivate more focus on the good stuff as well, and learn from the hard stuff as well. Yeah, so I don't know. I think that's how I view happiness now, which I think is a lot healthier than how I used to see it.
And yeah, I like how you said now, because if we had this interview
Mm,
in another interview in 2 years, or I wanted to have a
yeah,
conversation in 5 years or 10 years, you would probably give me
yeah,
a whole different level of what happiness means to you, or, what brings you joy, or what are the things that bring, mental clarity. So I think it's really
mm,
important for people to understand that, it does change your happiness, what happiness means to you, what success means to you, what brings you joy. And so I like how you put that on. It's a bunch of little things. And I think sometimes we focus on one thing, like this will make me happy, and then we neglect all the other areas. So I think that's important for people that are watching. It's a bunch of little things. And keeping on that kind of train as well, do you see like some misconceptions that people may have about happiness and trying to adopt a better mental well-being?
yeah, certainly. Again, like I think there's so many things that I've learned like about my own misconceptions that have really helped me, I guess, empathize with the wider populations. Because yeah, I think all of us start with a lot of misconceptions. I think some important common ones is kind of what I was talking about before about how you actually see happiness in the first place and what you think the goal is. Because I think a lot of us think that happiness is the absence of, yeah, hardships, heartbreak, and hurt. But unfortunately, we live in a very broken world, and that's unrealistic. There is a lot of hurt. At some point, we all have to face grief, which really, really sucks, and things like that as well. And so, thinking that to attain happiness, I need that, really nice state of euphoria, ends up letting you down because your expectations are, something that cannot be sustained long term. So you end up inevitably violating those expectations you set for yourself and those high standards, and then sometimes feel even more saddened by that fact. Whereas if you look at happiness as something you're continually working on and cultivating, and as you said really well, like these different aspects of life. So if you've got one of your, pieces of pie that is shrinking, like you've got the others there also to build you up and lift you up, and help support you through that shrinking time for one sphere of life. So, yeah, I think that it's important to view happiness more holistically, for happiness, ironically, because it helps you actually maintain more happiness. And I think that also, yeah, like in the same way, people think that, oh, if I have mental ill health, then that's, I guess, contrasting happiness. And so I can't have both. But actually, like, if you look at the statistics, so many of us are sort of going through a revolving door of mental health and mental ill health. And it's very normal to deal with and cope with anxiety and depression and so many other things, right? And it's absolutely fair to also want happiness. And just having mental ill health does not mean you can also have happiness hand in hand. You can live um, with some dual, I guess, aspects like that. So, like, I'm a very anxious person, but I still believe that I can be really happy. I just have to, look at the cards I've been dealt, and also my own, I guess, habits and things that are contributing to that, and work out what can I do to best use the cards I've been dealt and go with that. So again, I guess that ties in with the holistic nature of happiness. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that it's totally normal and okay to have mental ill health. And that doesn't mean that you can't have happiness at the same time.
Absolutely. And when you say that, yeah, you struggle with anxiety, like you were saying, and
Mm,
sometimes you have these anxious moments. And would you say it's like mindset? Would you say it's habits that you've established for yourself or getting yourself in right circumstances or environments that help you relax a little bit or have those little blissful moments, those little blissful events? Or is it one or the others, or is it a combination of things in your day that gets you out of that state sometimes and be like, oh, it's if I'm feeling this anxious moment, maybe because I didn't do this today, or let me just rethink my subconscious thoughts right now. Is it a bunch of things that kind of you have to go through in your day to keep your level of happiness just like at your baseline?
Yeah, that's really well put. I think that if I can go back to my deck of cards analogy, because something like anxiety, so the research says that there's a genetic contribution to a lot of like anxiety conditions. So for me, the cards I've been dealt, I do believe that like there's a genetic component of that. Like there's a lot of anxious individuals in my family, right? And so I used to meet criteria for generalized anxiety disorder, but now at the moment I would say I don't, based on my understanding. So basically, the cards I was dealt is very much like circumstance as well. So, like the genetic component is tricky, right? I can't control that. That's out of my control. And then other awesome things about my circumstance, which I'm so grateful and lucky for, about having such awesome parents and a really lovely supportive family. Like that also contributed to having some really good cards in my deck, right? And then I guess every day I'm choosing the habits and mindset, not so much the circumstance. So I'm choosing how I view the cards I've been dealt, and how I guess negatively I look at them versus positively. But it's much more nuanced than that. It's also about like just acknowledging realities while also like looking for hope building sort of thing. And then habits is like me playing those cards every day, right? So I think, I don't know, I like to think of it in that way, in that, okay, I've been dealt these cards, right? I can appreciate that a lot of that was out of my control. But then from there, what can I do with it? Because I'm not finished yet. So I'm going to look at them and think about, okay, how can I acknowledge some really good parts about this? And am I only focusing on the negative? And I think that really helps me as someone like calm down
Mhm.
for anxiety and stuff. Like there's a lot of research about, yeah, which relates to a lot of CBT principles, about how you view like everyday situations and also your own circumstances. And yeah, like are you all or nothing thinking, or are you sort of taking into account the nuances of life, and things like that that really help me. And then I guess the habits, yeah, that I put down those cards each day, really do influence, I guess, anxiety, but more broadly I'm talking about, I guess, happiness and mental health. So in terms of some key habits for me, things I've definitely changed over time is like the amount I move my body, the human connection that I really lean into when I'm getting more anxious. And then, yeah, I've really worked on mindset. That took like therapy, that took a lot of support from various people. I certainly didn't do it alone. And also, like, learning from, I guess, stressful periods in life and how to best cope with them and not, I guess, spiral. I do a lot of spiraling sometimes, which I think is a helpful way to think about, like, watching myself go down. And realizing that I'm getting further and further from reality in my like anxious thoughts and I guess exaggerations sometimes if I'm looking at them objectively. Yeah, so little things like that, I guess, all tie into how I look at those cards and play those cards just when it comes to anxiety. And I think it's really cool to see improvement and change over time. And I think a lot of people think they never will. But small steps lead to big outcomes. And yeah, even just having one less panic attack or something like that is an awesome achievement that people should really celebrate when they're working on things like anxiety. And yeah, it takes hard work, but it's really cool when you can see that improvement over time.
And yeah, I love the whole like deck of cards. I'm such a visual person, so when you said like,
Yeah.
I put down my cards every single day, and I was like
Mm,
that makes you understand, okay, wake up in the morning, okay, what am I feeling? And checking in with yourself and, being
mm,
more mindful, like you were saying, how am I feeling? Am I spiraling? It's a lot of trying to catch yourself or just trying to shift that habit or that thought of, like you said, one less panic attack today, perfect, or one less spiral today, or this week or this month. So it's really those little wins that sometimes we just breeze over because you're like, I just want the big thing. I just want to wake up one day and my anxiety's gone. But that's not how it works. And sometimes we do believe like if it's all or nothing, and that is kind of the human mind, perspective
Mm,
sometimes, like you were saying, of it's everything or I'm not going. And
mm,
that's something like we have to work on. And being, like you said, those being more mindful of your thoughts or your actions or your cards. Is there any that you can share with people listening from a, soon to be psychology, like psychologist or perspective of someone that has learned a lot about psychology? How does mindfulness play a role in someone's emotional well-being?
mm. Mindfulness or like mindfulness practice, would you say?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I really like the research on mindfulness. I think I said before, like I'm a stubborn person. I was one of those people that if someone told me to do a breathing exercise like 10 years ago, I would have given them a death stare. I don't know, like especially when I was a young teenager, like when I had like more serious anxiety stuff, which is more of a trickle now.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I sort of thought like, okay, breathing, great. What's that going to do? And it, yeah, really kind of got on my nerves if someone was just telling me to just breathe. But unfortunately for the old me, when you look into the research and breathwork is, yeah, I guess one part of the umbrella of mindfulness, it does work. You instantly, like sometimes it's about thought to body or like thought to action, but sometimes it's also action to thought. And I think breath work is one of those examples in the field of mindfulness, right? Where by activating a slower breathing rate, you're lowering your heart rate and actually giving more space in your brain, more oxygen for you to be able to think clearer thoughts. And so that does really work. And there's a lot of things about mindfulness as well that I think are definitely underrated, where people think that, oh, I don't know, just not for me, but actually for everyone, taking a little bit of time to pause and be mindful, like being aware is also something that's really, really powerful for mental health and not something that's easily described or captured. But exactly as you said, like waking up in the morning and going like, oh, what do I notice? Like things like that. That's all a part of mindfulness, right? Which is really a powerful, I guess, habit to cultivate like all throughout your daily routine. And then there's things about mindfulness, which is more like meditation and things like that, which also have amazing research behind it. I think there's something really interesting about the fact that so much of the research points towards rest and taking a gap and taking a reflection being really great for your mental health when more and more we're living in a world where we find it really uncomfortable to be left without our phone or a device or a distraction, to be left with our own thoughts. I think so many of us are actually super uncomfortable with that, including myself a lot of the time. But actually by doing that and letting yourself feel uncomfortable for a little bit to then learn that you can handle that and also, oh wow, I can actually think important thoughts and think about meaning and things like that, is so great for mental health. And I think that like everyone's different, the research applies differently to everyone's lives. But I just, yeah, I don't think people should, I don't know what's the word, like undermine or I guess shrug off the idea of mindfulness and integrating it into our lives too quickly. Because at least for me, it's definitely working a lot.
No, and for me too, like for the breathing or the
Mm.
meditation, I remember when I first started meditating, like 5 minutes was like a long time. It was like
Yes,
I remember like at
exactly.
3 minutes in and I'm like checking my phone, like how many more minutes? Like so it's
Yeah.
rough when you are just starting, but over time, your muscles
Mm.
are your brain's a muscle, so it's going to work and it's
Yeah.
going to strengthen. And you brought up something like breathing as well. And I honestly think that there should be a breathing class in elementary or even high school because
Yes.
a lot of us
$100.
yeah, are not breathing properly. I was listening to a podcast and they're like most of us don't even know that what how we're breathing is affecting different things. It could affect our face structure, our mental health, our lung capacity. And I was just thinking, I was like,
Mm,
but no one teaches us these things,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
maybe one day there'll be a movement of a breathing class, because at least what I'm witnessing in schools as well is, kids
Mm,
don't know how to be bored. Kids don't know
yeah.
how to sit still and just be,
Mm,
just hang out with themselves, or just, yeah, constantly looking for phones or screens or something that will stimulate their brain instantly. So you brought up another good conversation around that point. And if someone is, let's say, um, trying to build resilience, trying to build grit in those hard moments,
mm.
is how it's obviously very difficult, right? When I think of those moments of stress or uncertainty, or when I have low motivation, do you have any like mindset or like tips or tools that someone can do if they're like, I need to build my resilience right now, but I'm feeling stressed and uncertain and low motivation, and I'm not really like, I don't really want to do it. Like I just feel like I always have to quit or start over, or oh, tomorrow's another day. So is there something that you can give to someone right now that is struggling a little bit, and but still wants to be like, how can I get over this hurdle or get over this mountain right now?
It's a great question. I think that in those moments, it's like probably hardest to get the motivation to see someone.
Mhm.
But I just think that's an awesome opportunity to, yeah, go meet with a psychologist or a mental health professional and talk through it. Because, yeah, in my own experience, like trying to do everything alone, like sometimes that goes hand in hand with like a hyper independence complex thing, with like trying to do everything myself and work on the tools myself when it's actually stronger when you go to see a professional and go, okay, I acknowledge that I'm struggling, which everyone does, so totally normal. And then getting like the best, I guess, individualized tools built for you to help, like, because a psychologist isn't there to just talk at you and give you advice. They're actually there to help you, like, look in the mirror. In a good way, not a scary way, and go, okay, what tools do I need? And then help cultivate those and practice those with you so that you can walk off and do it all, yourself because you've built up those tools. So I think that's my, like, I don't know, I guess, golden answer, best thing. Mini resilience habits that I've learned about, I guess, in the meantime, for people, yeah, wanting that now change. I think that yeah, so you're kind of touching on like the grit, and like really when you're in that peak stress state. And I think that there's so much variance in like what that experience is like for someone. But I'll just talk like from my own experience based on research as well. Um, when you're in like that hyper stress state, what you're thinking and seeing is probably quite a skewed perception of reality in that moment. So if you need to make a big decision or you need to start, but you're in a really unregulated state, it's actually a really hard time to keep pushing yourself into something. So there's a lot of micro habits that are really protective against stress that I think are really cool to utilize in that moment. So things like a 5 minute walk around the block, a thing like getting up from the couch and going into a different room to see a change of scenery. There's even research about like people in an office and their ability to, for I think it's like just cognition, like focus point time, was the measure they use. And they have people looking at a brick wall versus a green wall, and people who look up from their computer for about 10 seconds for, I don't know, like a few minutes in a row or something like that. I'm massively messing up the materials and methods here, so excuse me for that. But basically, the people who looked at the green wall had a significantly better focus ability, and also that ties in with stress states and things like that. And there's a lot of stuff about greenery. So going and looking at some plants like that seems way too simple, but it actually works to an extent to go find some greenery and look at it. So like I guess centering yourself is really important if you're in that, I guess, hyper stress state that we're thinking about. If it's more something where you feel like, or I guess don't feel, but know you actually can proceed with what you were trying to do in a time of uncertainty or low motivation, I think it's really important the way you talk to yourself in that moment, because I think the temptation is to go, "Oh, I'm crap for thinking this uncertainly," or what, like, why am I not motivated? Like, this is, yeah, just really bad self talk, which in turn, I guess, reinforces those difficult emotions and feelings and thoughts. Whereas if you look at it to be okay to be uncertain or low motivation, that actually, funnily enough, gives you a lot more room for something called behavioral activation, which is a big thing in a lot of research, especially for depression, which ties in with low motivation. So sometimes you need to activate a habit or a behavior for that to then flow into your thoughts in a positive way. So, like, yeah, behavior to thought, which is something we touched on before. So I think that, yeah, acknowledging that it's okay to feel those feelings and thoughts and still go ahead with something without feeling like you can do it in that moment is sometimes the best thing you can do, because setting like a Pomodoro timer or like just a 5 minute timer just to see, okay, can I start writing this email? Can I write a title for this essay? And what you learn is that this ties in with procrastination. Once you actually start, you kind of subvert the expectations of your own negative thoughts and go, oh, actually, the uncomfortable feeling that I was sitting with to do with the potential of failure or something like that is manageable and has slowly gone down when I've simply started. And then you can keep going from there because you've built up that motivation. So I guess in those short moments, I think it's really important to first center. So do an evidence-based habit like move your body however best way you want to, look for greenery, even like go hug a pet. That's really good for oxytocin, things like that. Just get some good chemicals in your brain. And then from there, come back and just start on something and also work on that self talk, which is something you can work on every single day. And I think those things really over time are good for stress and uncertainty and low motivation. In my, I guess, mini understanding of someone who's training to be a future psychologist, of little things that can help. Yeah.
No, you gave some amazing little like you said, instant things that they can do now, other than yes, of course, go and talk to someone. But
Yeah.
like the timer, that was great. Or I actually used that today. I was in a
Yeah.
frustrating moment and I was like, I'm putting on a
Nice.
little 2 minute timer pity party for Victoria right now. And then once the
Yeah.
2 minute timer's done, I can't control the situation. So I had nothing else to do than just kind of move past it. So I was like, yes, that's a great one. And
That's awesome.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with, I'm also going to mess it up, but when I was
Mm.
studying, they picked upon the Japanese hospital where they built a hospital next to a forest. Are you familiar with this?
Oh yes, yeah, yes.
Okay.
There's a term for Let me quickly see if I can find it.
Mhm.
Forest bathing. Yes, sorry.
Yes.
Yes, no, that's it. Go on.
And yeah, so I was just going to bring that up of just, just stepping outside in nature or going for that 10-minute walk or 5-minute walk. And that, yeah, that concept that came to my mind instantly when I was reading
Mm.
about that. So
Yeah.
nature does wonders. Green, just looking at a green wall, right? It
Yeah.
just tricks your mind of like, hey, maybe you're outside and taking in, the
Yeah.
fresh air, the sunlight. So yeah, that came to my mind right away when you said that. I was like, yeah, there's a lot of research around nature and just
Yeah.
decompressing your thoughts outside. And I'm gonna ask you, okay, two last questions, but
Yeah. Take your time.
for you, what do you wish, with your page and your future, what do you wish more people understood about mental health or mental well-being and emotional growth and the importance of it, or just understand about themselves?
That's a big one. Because I have so many answers to this question, but I'll try and keep it short to like a key one that I've been reflecting on at the moment. Um, which is I just think I wish more people understood that working on your mental health is not so many things. It's
Mm.
not selfish. It's not really optional, and I'll explain that better. It's not a waste of time, and it's just not so many things, like so many misconceptions. And what I mean by all that is that working on your mental health is like fixing up the foundation. So if you want to improve, I don't know, if you're an athlete and you want to excel in your field in a physical related performance capacity, right? If you want to improve on your academics, if you want to, improve high degree research or something, and you want to achieve a lot in that field, if you just want to be there for your children as a mother, if you want like any goal in life, even though it feels like it's actually not mental health related, it is, because that is the foundational capacity to be able to, as we talked a lot about, which is awesome, like withstand stress and think about the best way to approach it. And that's actually what working on mental health is. Sometimes I like it when people say mental strength instead of mental health, because I think some people have a lot of connotations around mental health. But working on your mental health is working on your mental strength, which is what you have to live with every day. You have to be inside your own head. Like your mind is your home, so invest in it and work on it. That's something that I like often say. Yeah, I just think that it's so cool where we are at the moment in time, because a lot more people are respecting mental health than they used to. A lot more people like are improving their own mental health literacy just because they're fascinated, which is amazing, so cool. And we're in an awesome time where we're actually really led by the research. And what we know is that working on your mental health does work. There's a lot you can do no matter how stuck you feel. And it also flows into the other areas or goals in your life. And I just think, yeah, it's like if you're not working on your mental health as well, and I don't mean like you have to always be in therapy or anything like that, but every time you resist an opportunity to procrastinate, you're working on that mental strength. Every time you choose to even like think a grateful thought, that's, yeah, as you said so beautifully, like your mind is a muscle, you can train it. Um, yeah, if you're not doing that, that's also like choosing not to, which is fine. And sometimes we don't have the capacity to feel like we can, but that's also like slowly affecting your brain and wiring your brain over time. So not working on your mental health, and that's why I say like it's not optional. You're actually just working on it in a different direction sometimes, or like staying in the same patterns, which also might be fine. But I always think that like, yeah, there's no one attainable goal for me for my mental health. I always know that there's little ways that I can improve upon it. And I think that's a nice position to come in, like as a student of mental health or a learner, like you're constantly improving and learning, and it's okay not to have a benchmark that I'm trying to reach.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I remember, yeah, when I first started, like we said, like meditating or all these things that and maybe it's the same thing for you or other people listening, but I remember when I first started, I was like, okay, this feels good. And I do it for like 30 days or 40 days or 10 days. And then
Yeah.
I would stop because I'm like, oh, I feel great. My mind's on point. Like, I don't need to do this anymore. Like, I'm calm. And then you stop, and then like a week would go by, and you catch yourself falling back in the same habits or thoughts. And then you do it
Mhm.
again for another 20 days, and then you stop. And then I finally realized, I was like, no, like our mental well-being, our mental health is not a goal, like you just said so perfectly too.
Mm.
It's not like I have a goal like by the end of the month. It's really
Yeah.
it's a lifetime journey. And like you said, we're going to experience grief, and that's going to be a new chapter of resilience. And then you're going to experience something else, and heartbreak or love or, good emotions, and then strong emotion or stronger emotions. And it's a daily in and out practice. It's you're never done. Like, and that's something too that people might need to understand too, is that it's a daily thing, and it's going to be something, yes, for the rest of your life. And it's exciting, and you're going to try new practices that work, new practices that don't work, but it's fun that we get to be, as humans, check our deck of cards and see,
Mm.
okay, this is what I'm struggling with, and this is working. This is what I'm struggling with. This is not what's working. And having that opportunity or chance to figure yourself out as well. And yeah, it just I really liked our conversation, and I'm like, I have a few more questions to ask you, but I might save that for maybe another time. But Charlotte,
Yeah,
is
definitely.
there a place that people can find you? And also, I saw on your Instagram that you do actually have a journal. And what
Mhm.
inspired you to write that, and where can they find that as well?
Great questions. The main place people can find me is on Instagram. Like, if you want social media posts about mental health, I'm your gal.
Yes.
So basically, yeah, I just have my Instagram, Psychology with Charlotte, where I post. Yeah, just all things psychology and mental health, and have a lot of fun with that. So, yeah, that's the easiest place to find me. Yeah, I did write a guided journal. There's actually a bunch behind me, but I don't think any of these. Oh, actually, um, I keep like my mini stock up here.
Oh,
This is my journal, which you asked about, which
yeah.
I also has its own page, the Easy Journal. And like you can also find it on my website, which is, yeah, I think like if you go to Instagram, you'll find links to everything else. So start there. But yeah, I love journaling and I love the research behind it. But I think that journaling, like just giving yourself a blank notebook, can be really hard. And kind of as you were talking about before, like it's I have a lot of hope that like in schools and stuff like that, they'll start training emotion regulation, like have that as a class, or breath work and things like that. And in the same way, I think a lot of us aren't taught how to like write down and process our feelings. And when I was looking at a lot of journals growing up, I didn't find anything that really had everything that I wanted in a journal to be very evidence based and help me process emotions and things like that in a really evidence based, effective, efficient manner. So basically, I just decided to design one once I started the page. And so, yeah, it sort of works through like an emotion wheel so you can process whatever state you're in, and that's like the 5 minute journaling section. So it's a really quick and efficient and research based way to work through an uncomfortable or a good emotion, as we often call them. Every emotion is important and a signal, and an opportunity to learn about yourself and also like feel a bit more relieved after getting pen to paper. So that's mainly what this is about, but it's also got like a habits and goals section for the new year and a lot of like free reflective space in the back. So it's just a jam-packed psychology-based journal that I really wanted to see on the market. So I made one. But yeah, that's the Easy Journal. I hope that answers your question. But yeah, I'm really just mainly online. There's a lot of exciting projects and things that I'll slowly start firing off in the next 2 months while I have some more free time. But yeah, no, I also really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for having me on here. I think it's so important to create more and more spaces of conversation. It's a really important thing to talk about all this stuff. And I hope that I added some value somehow, because often I feel like there's not much I can say that someone hasn't already said. But no, I just appreciate it so
No,
much.
you added, Charlotte, a lot of good tips and also different ways of seeing different things as well. Like you said, there's a lot of talk in the psychology world, but no, you
Mm.
brought a good point. So I was like, oh, I'd never heard it like that before, or she just wow. So I loved it. I know a lot of people are gonna love this conversation. And if you haven't already, I love the emotional wheel. It's actually saved in my favorites on my phone. And so when I'm experiencing something at the office or wherever I am, if I have to go to the bathroom really quickly, just to look at that wheel and be like, how am I feeling? Okay, what can I do? Or just take a deep breath. I think understanding our emotions or pinpointing it's that emotion that I'm feeling right now, it does calm your brain. So put it in your favorites or get Charlotte's journal and have it with you because yeah, it definitely helps. So Charlotte, thank you so much. And I hope everyone goes to check out your work in your journal. And it's been lovely to have you on here. So thank you.